at the CES, that's when we met with Stein, Robert Stein, who had the first version of Tetris that he said he saw while he was in Hungary and was trying to see if there would be an American publisher of that particular game. Stein made his career finding interesting products in the East, Eastern Europe, right, and bringing them to the West. A sole practitioner of licensing people's products, identifying potential talent. I think that was an important function at that time, given the fact that it was really hard to go to a place like the Soviet Union. What was interesting was Robert Stein had shot this game to a few other publishers. One of them was to Broderbund.
I thought we wouldn't have said this at the time because they didn't exist, but it was more of a handheld kind of game, a little bit of a lightweight game. I didn't feel like it had the heft to be a PC game. I also thought it looked a little messy. It was a story that I heard about where it came from and through whom, but I was dealing with people several steps down the ladder, and I wasn't totally sure of its provenance.
There was a producer at that time, Brad Frager. It's kind of a contract producer. And Brad was saying, hey, I just saw this great game called Tetris that Robert Stein is showing around. You should really, really publish it. Then I got a call from Microsoft, from Jim McConaughey. Jim goes, hey, Stein is coming to the States. He dropped off this game. We can't stop playing it. Like, we cannot stop playing it.
Jim McConaughey, who was the CEO for Microsoft, said, I've got something to show you. And he showed me Tetris. I played it for a little bit, just couldn't quit playing it. Jim says, hey, I'm dealing with Robert Stein. He has the rights to it.
Phil was in the meeting, myself was in the meeting, and Stein was in the meeting. I said, I like the game a lot, but I want to make a lot of changes. Right? I want to change the graphics. I want to change the scoring mechanisms, the controls. I want to tweak with it. Can I talk to the programmers? And he goes, you can't talk to the programmers. I go, I can't talk to the programmers. Why can't I talk to the programmers? If you're licensing somebody's product, I need to be able to talk to the programmers. And he goes, well, the programmers are not in Hungary. They're in the Soviet Union. Soviet Union? I turned to Phil. I said, put it in a red box.
We wanted to push it as the first product out of Russia, and we came up with a marketing concept and the Saint Bastille as the box and the spelling of Tetris using the Russian symbol and letters.
So his marketing brain starts rolling. My marketing brain starts rolling. So we do the deal.
We signed the deal, but unbeknownst to us, is it was signed in with Academy Soft, and eventually Elorg Programa took it over in Russia, and that's how some of the rights got convoluted later.
We spent months trying to get that thing tuned so that it felt right through that progression till you got into that sweet spot of the gameplay, because that was a key part of the magic of the game, right? We even put a thing called the boss key because people were playing this thing at work. So we had so that if you press a key, a spreadsheet, a fake VisiCalc sheet would show up because people, once you started playing, they couldn't stop playing. We had to get people to pick up the game. So we had to tell a story. We really try to play up this kind of glasnost environment. Hey, this is the game that Russia will use to invade America, right? Through addiction. We were trying to put together a story that would get people sucked into the game. But once you got into the game took care of the rest. And yeah, we tweaked it, we tuned it, but the core of the game was always there. It was there way before we touched the product. And I give all the credit to the original Russian team.
We finally got the PC version from Spectrum Holobyte. And when we put it on PC and saw it, we got, both of us, me and Belikov, we became pale.
There's a 16-year-old German pilot that landed a plane in Red Square, and we put that into the introduction.
Pulling a banner that says "Play Tetris," right across the screen.
That was very big political scandal at this time around this landing and whatever.
So we thought that was fun because, again, we're trying to get the game positioned so that when they think about the Soviet Union, they'll think about Tetris. When they think about Tetris, they'll think about the Soviet Union. Stein goes, you need to change that.
We immediately kind of contact them and say it's absolutely unacceptable.
So we pulled it out.
And they say, no problem, we will take it away. That was a very big relief.
Just so happened, as we were coding up the game, the announcement goes off that it's going to be the first summit, détente, between Reagan and Gorbachev. So that all was part of how we framed it. Like, this is the thing that's going to break through the Iron Curtain.
We hired a Gorbachev and a Reagan look-alike.
And we start producing ads, a USA Today style ad that says, what's really happening behind these secret meetings, and they had them two playing Tetris. And it was picked up by everybody.
We really went all out, TV, media, the whole perestroika.
So Tetris was actually launched with the story from the New York Times as the first game from the Soviet Union.
And it won Game of the Year at the SBA Awards for 1988.
The situation was very clear. Not my computer center, even Academy of Science has no right to have any business deal with somebody outside of USSR. It was very special agency of Ministry of Foreign Affairs who was authorized to sign some kind of business deals with any other outside entities. And then I start kind of my odyssey over those different agencies in Moscow. I didn't want this too much. I was a little bit afraid of all this kind of activity around this stuff. So any excuse to avoid it, I used in full force. But as soon as I have this telex, I need to do something with it. And I did several agencies, and all of them kind of say, no, we don't deal with software, we don't know how to do this. It's not our main job, and the deal is too small or whatever. Finally, I got very good guy in Ilorg. His last name was Alexeyenko. Sasha Alexeyenko, Alexander Alexeyenko, yeah. He likes programming and he likes us programmers, and that was a very big hope for my little game. So I prepare some kind of paper for agreement between Computer Center and Delorg. My deputy director just signed it without reading. 3 or 4 months I didn't heard anything of it. And all of a sudden he called me and say, yeah, well, I met Robert Stein. He considered your reply as an agreement. I say, come on, how could it be? It looks like he get this deal as is, and he is sub-licensed it already, and the game is about to come out. We can't do anything like that. So the only thing we could do is just to sign the agreement with them and let them do it. So we don't have we cannot bargain with him already because he consider this telex reply as a general agreement. That was it. Somehow it happens and stopped. And I never heard about the game, about anything for another kind of maybe 3 or 4 months. But at this time, the new person came to the scene, Mr. Belikov, Nikolai Evgenievich Belikov came on board. He became the chief of my previous friend. We discussed the strategy, we discussed what we could do. We decided we never give up the other platforms and whatever. So we was all in agreement about this stuff.
So I went to Japan.
It's June by now. Gilman Louis comes to Japan. His first stop is the company that put him in business, a Japanese company called ASCII, that made a deal to represent Microsoft in Japan.
I had a good relationship with Microsoft Japan through ASCII Corporation because they kind of gave me my start, giving me contracts to develop games for the MSX back then. It was a Japanese computer.
That was their relationship. So he had to stop at ASCII first. And they were the biggest company in Japan at that time.
I showed it to them, but they were, they were not that interested in Tetris.
ASCII passed on Tetris in 1988 because they said Tetris was too retro. Can you imagine? Tetris was too retro in 1988. ASCII is gone, Tetris is still here. I would say ASCII is too retro.
So Hank goes, I'll license it. I agree that Hank would be the right partner because Hank loved this product. Like, he loved this product. And I knew he was going to do right by this product. Hank wanted console rights as well. Now, this is pre-Game Boy.
Gilman, at that point, licensed me. Of course, it was PC, it was console, it was coin-op, and then he goes back, and we had made a whole deal.
So I go back and I call up Microsoft because we jointly owned the IP. The Mirror Group was owned by the Maxwells, and the son of Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell was the head of the entire enterprise. But Kevin was trying to build his own sub-publishing group inside this, an electronic publishing group. The CEO was a guy by the name of Peter Bellata. And Peter wanted the rights for Blasteroids. He traded Blasteroid rights for Tetris.
3 weeks later, he calls me and he says, I'm really sorry to say this, but while I was in Japan dealing this, Microsoft has licensed those rights to Tengen, Atari Games / Tengen. I said, those guys absolutely have no presence in Japan. Why would they do that? They traded it for Blasteroids.
Blasteroids was a B game at best.
I mean, Blasteroid sounds like a condition. Blasteroid, here, take some preparation B. You know, where did nobody ever heard of Blasteroids after that? Anyway,
I was furious, but he wanted the Atari brand. So I go up to Kevin. I said, "This is Kevin Maxwell. I said, this is the worst decision you could ever make. How could you let this game go for a B-class game like Blasteroids?" Kevin was trying to broker the peace between warring American company run by myself, Sphere and Spectrum Holobyte, and Peter Bellata, who was running Microsoft at the time. So the way it worked was, okay, you keep the game rights, but Peter is going to license this off. So I call up Hank and I said to Hank, look, I'm out of it.
I said, Gilman, we made a deal. You can't just like walk away and say that, sorry, there was no deal. We have a deal. He said, okay, let me see what I can do. And then what he came back with is, okay, well, I got you the PC rights, the personal computer rights. And that's something.
My parent company has ruled that they're going to go with the Brits. The Brits have licensing it to Atari or Tengen, right? You need to go talk to them if you want to get the rights for the cartridge rights.
I had already started developing on all 8 different personal computers. They were all not compatible, and on Nintendo, on the family computer or the NES. Tengen. I know the guy who I can deal with at Tengen. His name is Randy Brolite. He sends me a fax and he says, "Sorry, but we've made a decision. We can't license it to you." I'm like, what? And Atari Games was owned, it was 46% by an American company, 46% by Namco, and 8% by the people running the company. So I thought, well, maybe Namco decided that they're going to publish it. But Namco had a policy. They never published anybody else's software. They only ever published their own games. I remember being at a trade show, and I ran into Iwatani. Iwatani is the creator of Pac-Man. And so I go, "Mr. Iwatani, what do you think of Tetris?" And he drew a blank. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, never mind. If Namco was going to be publishing Tetris, and if they were looking at it, he would know. And so the fact that he didn't know meant that Namco had no eyes on Tetris. I said to my team, "Look, I'm getting on a plane. I'm going to there in San Jose. I'm going to San Francisco. I'm not coming back till I have these rights. I got a meeting." Remember the table with Van Elderen, Nakajima, Randy Brolite, and I was explaining that I had already made a lot of progress on Tetris, and it took me 10 days. We had I remember having sushi with the president of Atari Games, Nakajima, and on a napkin we made a deal. That's how I end up being able to publish Tetris in Japan. So I thought.
I used to play Tetris in arcade. That was Sega arcade. And before I joined the Sega, I was a teenager. And, the Japanese Game Center, that was a very exciting place. Two people sat facing each other in a table-type cabinet. And it was, coins stacked on the table like that. And I wasn't a good player, but I watched the super plays, by the great players, many great players in Japan. And there was always a huge crowd around the Tetris table. Tetris was like very intellectual battle type of game, It's very quiet and silence, and very high tension. And everybody watching just blocks. I think Tetris is the first game, it's very great to watch. Yeah, Tetris is very minimal, simple game. No decoration, just very simple patterns of shapes. Everybody go into a deep dive into the zone states kind of feel. I love that. I love that feeling.
So I send my guys out to get initial orders for Tetris. And they came back and said, we got 40,000 units. And 40,000 is not enough. Because in order for you to get a repeat order, you have to sell through at least 200,000 copies. And so I made a meeting with you, Mr. Yamauchi, again. So, Mr. Yamauchi, I think I have one of the greatest games in the history of computer games. And my guy, I don't know whether it's my marketing that sucks or whether my sales guys suck. I don't know. But we've only been able to get 40,000 units. Well, he calls in Miyamoto. Miyamoto's the guy who made Mario and Zelda and everything. He called him Miyamoto. Miyamoto, is this a great game? And Miyamoto says, yes. And it's, wow. So, and how do you know? It says, because your secretaries and accountants are playing at lunch and after work. And then he calls in Imanishi. He's the number 2. He goes, Imanishi, I want you to put Nintendo's seal of approval on this game. I was like, whoa, that's like the seal of good housekeeping. And I want you to call every distributor and tell them to order more. I was like, wow, this is some serious action that's going on here. I remember there was a moment when Yamauchi actually thought, he could buy Tetris from me and then let Nintendo publish it. And he said, you'll make much more money if you let me publish Tetris and I'll pay you royalties. And I said, that may be true, but Tetris is my game. The only way that I would give you Tetris is if you would give me Mario. Okay, you got the point. So thank you very much. Go back to Yokohama. Mr. Imanishi calls me back the next day and says, please, please, please don't make me put the seal of approval on the game, because if I do, then every other company is going to want a seal of approval. And then I have to set up a whole department figuring out which games have, get the seal of approval or not. And then it's just going to be a huge headache. So, but I'll call every distributor for you and make them order more. Okay, I thought, well, shoot, as long as I get the orders, I'm fine. So he calls distributors, and we got another 30,000, which is like, oh, come on, So Christmas comes, the distribution has puts our games in all the stores, and it's not selling through. Nobody knows what Tetris is. It's not a game that you can look at an ad and say, oh, I want to play that game. No, you have to play Tetris. And so distributors then, the stores started panicking. The distributors started dumping. Dumping means selling below their cost. I got my guys calling everybody, said, do not dump your software. This is a different pattern from every other game. People have to play the game before they can want to. It'll take off, but it takes off slower. Well, end of January, every place was sold out, and every place was clamoring for more. Beginning of February, we got orders for 200,000 units. Where am I going to get the money for 200,000 units? Because at that time, the way that it worked is you had to pay Nintendo cash up front. Then basically They go into manufacturing. 2 months later, you get your delivery, it goes into the store. Then you get paid back. So it's 2.5 months before you get your money back. $2.5 million, $2 million, $10 or 1,000 yen a cartridge. And so I went to the bank, and the bank says, where's your collateral for $2 million? And finally, I convinced my wife to convince her family, her father. Basically, they put up all of their real estate, all of it. And so we managed to hang on.